I need a little bit of space. Oh, is your sister out there? Oh, Lord, we might have a cat fight. Yeah, and then tell me about the, December 3rd, you want me to look up. Awesome. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So that would have been the day of the accident, I'm assuming? All right. So this is the day that basically this is the reason that you're not necessarily homeless. You're living with your sister now, but you don't have a car, and, you're living with your sister, thankfully, that you're not homeless, because your car got totaled, right? And how is your son? I don't think you I know you always mentioned about, like, what happened and how, like, you lost where you live and everything, but thankfully you still have your job. But how was your son in that accident? Like, was he okay? Did he have to go to the hospital? Um, I don't think we talked about that. And you don't have to go into too much detail about him necessarily, but I just realized that I don't know any of that. I just realized you didn't really share that. He's okay, right? Like, I know you said he's going through a hard time mentally. That was what you shared. So what I'm gonna do is go back in time, and let's do this. Um, let's do this. All right, December 3rd, 2022, 1 a.m., Southtown, South Africa. Your son had an automobile accident, and your life changed because of this. So we looked at her chart last week just to have a greater understanding, because when the planets move, things happen. We feel differently, we think differently, we talk differently, we communicate to others, our mind just functions, we feel emotions. Everything changes, whether we're aware of it or not. The influences are there. And even our health, big time. That was one of the big things with astrology for me. One of the top 3 things of why I sought out astrology and started really deep diving into it was for my health. I probably don't talk about that a whole lot, but that's what it was. And it answered so many questions for me. It was crazy. We'll see what he was going through, like emotionally, mentally. We'll just get a better understanding of what happened on this night. So I know this looks really confusing. That's right. Let me point some things out so that let me mark it up. Hold on a second. This information over here, yeah, that's him personally, right? But this right here, this is the information you just gave me, which is December 3rd, 2022, 1 a.m., Cape Town, South Africa. This was the approximate time of his automobile accident, right? Okay, so just so we all understand, because this is confusing, there's a lot to look at. So you're just going to follow my cursor and my little funky arrows right there. You see how I'm wiggling around? Right. So you see 2 circular things going on. Actually, there's like 4 circular things, but you see this big outer ring. This is December 3rd, this outer ring. Okay. All the way around, that's the outer ring, and that's December 3rd. That's the moment of the approximate time of the accident. And the inner ring, let me use this one up here. The inner ring is the energy he was born with. Okay, so this is the energy that tells us a whole lot about who he is physically, mentally, psychologically, how he thinks, what he likes to do for fun, and how creative he is, his work ethic, his responsibilities and duties, like all that kind of stuff is here. His emotions, what he loves, right? He's an intense individual. How do I know that? Because his moon is in Scorpio. So he's going to have deep, powerful, intense emotions. He has a moon in Scorpio. Okay. Those are powerful people. Those are really powerful people. And it doesn't have anything to do with like muscles. It's not that kind of power. It's a different kind of power. When you meet those people, you meet them and you're like, whoa, like, whoa, you can feel them energetically, right? He also has his Jupiter in his first house, Jupiter in Pisces. Okay. And why does that matter? Well, the reason I kind of talked about the accident and trying to find out like if he was in the hospital because he's a Pisces ascendant normally, right? Like always. I'm sorry, I said normally. He's a Pisces ascendant. And it's interesting, Alex, you're the person who introduced Vertex to me. And look where Vertex was at 20 degrees. So it was conjunct his ascendant, Vertex. Now, Pisces energy can be hospitals. Yeah, it's crazy, right? It can also be Hollywood. It's a lot of H's, right? It can be hospitals. It can be Hollywood. It can be like the silver screen. It can be playing a role and performances, right? It's got some similarities with the Leo energy. So it's a very creative energy. It's music, it's poetry, but not just poetry, like any sound, any music. Think of Pisces. So whether you're a performer or a lyricist, somebody who writes music, like that's all Pisces energy. Okay. It's all Pisces. And so typically like, movies have like a soundtrack, right, to go along with it. And the theme around that, when you hear sounds, do they make you feel a certain way? Yeah. Right. Music is really powerful, but what else can make us feel a certain way? Yeah. Pisces is also about substances. Okay. And I'm only bringing this up. I'm only bringing it up because it's the meaning. It's one of the words literally for Pisces, right? It's substances. So depending upon who individuals are, they may do things differently. Like I was joking around with somebody and saying, oh my God, I need a drink. I need to start doing this. I need to start doing that. But for me, honestly, like what would knock me out? Take a Tylenol PM. That would knock me out. I'd be gone to the wind, like that would be my way of escaping or whatever, right? But everybody has their own way. Or what about watching movies? I talked about Dennis's channel. It's my way of escaping. And that is also a word for Pisces is escapism. Okay. Now, I'm only bringing this up because that freaking that Vertex energy is right there, conjunct, right? Yeah. And we don't even know the time, but then it would have been conjunct Jupiter. Okay. Now, in all fairness, I didn't look at his chart at all today. And last week when I did the chart, I didn't look at it. I just punched his digits in so that I wouldn't forget it, right? Because I just have too many things going on. I'm really scattered right now. So I just did all that to have it. But clearly something was heard and something was coming through. The other thing is that this Vertex, let me change my color line here real quick. This Vertex, I'm just going to use this green. That Vertex and his ascendant, look at this. Oh, I said green. Like, hello? Thank you. There we go. Look at that. Magic. I have cat hair all over my face right now. Anyway, nothing like it. So Vertex and his ascendant trine his 9th house cusp line, which is a long trip, a long journey even. Goes and takes a long journey because that's the 9th house. Yeah. And for him, because he has Scorpio at 22 degrees on that 9th house cusp line, it doesn't have to be about necessarily getting on a plane and taking a long journey, but that 9th house is like, we find a way to take a journey. So how many people here have prayed? How many people have done some art or meditated or made music or some sort of a creativity? When we do that, we get in a zone. And it's as though we take a journey. It's as though we're not like really, it's like we step into another dimension almost, right? And so we can step into other dimensions without even using substances. We don't have to use a substance, right? Well, Scorpio on that 9th house cusp line could probably absolutely do that. Yeah. And so that's interesting. Okay. So I just wanted to point out some things with his natal chart that I guess, because it's just what's coming through, are relevant. And look, Jupiter on that night was at 2856 in Pisces. So that's 29 degrees, a critical degree. And the moon was in Aries. Okay. So when someone says Jupiter in Pisces, well, I have been talking the whole time about Pisces. You've heard me, like all the keywords I've been talking about it. And when I say Jupiter, that just means it's more Pisces. It adds to Pisces energy. It expands upon it. It makes it grow even more. So you could say it doubles up on the Pisces energy. So it's fantasy, sci-fi, but it's, I need to escape. I need to get away. And so somebody may take a drink. Somebody may do something creative or do another thing something else, something that is definitely liberating and makes that person feel free, right? Because that ninth house is also about freedom, and that's why we go on a trip. That's the ninth house, why we take a journey, why we go on vacation, right? When you go on vacation, you want to feel free. You want to be able to escape. And he's got Jupiter on Pisces. You follow? And the fact that the moon was in Aries conjunct freaking Chiron. So the moon is our emotions, right? We were talking about how tomorrow's there's a full moon. Aries energy is independent action. It's also about freedom. Now, he doesn't have anything in the Aries energy at 10 degrees, right? He only has something at 19. So this moon might not necessarily be such a big deal, but it was conjunct Chiron, and Chiron is the wounds of our body. Okay. He's got this at 19. This is Aries, who can be a little combative. So I wouldn't say that these are these are conjunct, but they're not close enough for me anyway. We have to see some more things and see what else was going on. So what does my eye see? I'm going to change color because we are going to go to the black just because we need a color. We see Mercury's at his midheaven, but it's actually past his midheaven, and this is his midheaven. Your midheaven, when someone says midheaven, that's your ambitions and your goals. You're like, okay, this is important to me. This is a goal. I want to do this. This is important. I'm going to work towards this. Well, look what he's got at his midheaven. Sag. Sag is the same meanings for the ninth house. Traveling, my freedom. Right. I want to go on vacation. But Sag isn't necessarily seeking, like going on vacation just to go on vacation. It's searching and seeking. That's what Sagittarius is about. It is really trying to gain wisdom. I really love the Sagittarius energy. It is a wisdom seeker, right? He's got this at the midheaven. So many would say that this is like astronaut energy, like a test pilot or an astronaut, because the Sag is willing to scour the earth for wisdom and knowledge, and even go up off of the earth, like take off from the earth, like an astronaut would. So some say Sag at the midheaven is, you could be an astronaut, right? But he also has Mercury here. See that? Mercury's at 24. So Mercury is a pretty fast mover. If I were to move this back just 12 hours, Mercury would have been on his midheaven, which means he might have had a plan to take a trip or a journey, or there was some sort of an important communication at the very least. But what's interesting is because his Mercury, or this Mercury, I should say, is in Sag, right? Fire. Look, that Mercury and his midheaven, they line up with this Aries energy over here at 24, right? So maybe he had a plan. Maybe this was something he had planned a couple of weeks or months in advance to make this trip, or to go on some sort of an excursion or journey, or searching for something, seeking, because that Mercury would have been trining that second house cusp line too, and then that Aries. And it would speak to that midheaven of, okay, let's take off and do this type of thing. I'm sure you guys can hear Taffy at the door, so I am going to go get her. But I'm going to draw another line because that's a trine, even though it's in black. Here's another line. Yeah, his midheaven trines his sixth house cusp line. And that's Leo energy. Romance, dating, mating, relating, fun, taking a risk with my body. Sixth house. You see that? So that means all this right here, that's a big grand fire trine. So that's good. Hopefully that gave him some protection. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, I'm coming. You're done with me already, huh? There you go. There you go. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Alrighty. Okay, there's so much cat hair on this. It's crazy. Okay. All right, so let me see what else we're gonna see. I want to check the sun. I'm hearing the sun. Check the sun. So let me take this arrow. let me check the okay, you guys can see. I forgot. I always forget to come back and check to see what you guys can see what I'm saying because I can't do both. Oh, wait, let me check the chat while I'm here, Alice. You might have a question. There might have been something you were like, "Hey, do this." Okay, so she says, Alice is saying, I'm back. I think that Chinese balloon knocked I didn't know you were gone, but thank you. You're a sweetheart. They shot that damn thing down, by the way, in case you didn't hear that news. They shot that thing down. When it comes to like the world's event stuff, there's a guy on YouTube who's unbelievably great, I think, because he's very logical. And his channel is Beau of the Fifth Column, Beau. Anyway, dude's got a lot of knowledge. I think he worked for the government before. I'm not sure. He might have been in intelligence. I am not really sure, but he's super articulate, but he talks about things in a really just a very logical way. And his take on the Chinese balloon thing was something I knew nothing about, and I'm not hearing anybody else talk about. So anyway, just thought I'd bring that up because it's interesting. Oh, look at this. Ella says it was a short trip from the bar back home. Okay. Okay, so it was a short trip. Mercury at the midheaven. It happened early morning on the 4th. Okay, you know what? You're right. I just realized I have the date on this. Oh, right. Thank you for saying that. Look it didn't flip, right? Because I changed the time, and so it went back. So we actually have to go back. Oh, well then maybe that'll even make more sense because Mercury had already passed his midheaven here. Okay, so let me go find the software and make that change then, because that's going to be a whole 24-hour difference. That's a big deal. Let's see if we can, let's start with the blue again. This is the chart of the moment. And the chart of the moment is the outer ring. Yeah, okay. I want to see the sun. Yeah, a lot of stuff in Sag. And here's the thing about this Sagittarius energy. It has a strong desire to get away and to escape. But it's not escapism energy per se. It's really more about seeking, right? And it's the Pisces that's more about escapism. Pisces and Neptune, I should say, too, because Neptune rules Pisces. And yeah, so he's got Neptune going through his first house. It's amazing that, and it's good that, So Alice, maybe you answered this in the chat. I don't want to ask you again if you already answered, but he had Neptune conjunct his ascendant. Neptune's at 23. So I know it's confusing because it's like past the ascendant. So it's like, it's not really, when I say conjunct, it means it's with it. But the software just has to figure out ways to squish it all in there because there's so much in Pisces. So that's why the degrees are really important. The thing is, this Neptune was retrograding. It was going backwards away from his ascendant. His ascendant's 23, 22. Sirius was right here. It had just touched, like a week or two. Actually, maybe even just a week before, Sirius would have been on that 6th house, 7th house cusp line. Sirius is how we nurture ourselves. And being in Virgo, it's organizing and structures. It's also our health and our well-being. Like, this might be a fitness person, but might be some alternative stuff in there for him too. Or at least the person that he's drawn to or that might be considered his partner. He has White Moon Lilith on his descendant. Wow. White Moon Lilith is a really nice energy. She brings the light. She brings the light. It's a really beautiful thing to have that White Moon Lilith on his descendant. So that's a really great thing for somebody who he could possibly be a partner with, having White Moon Lilith there. Okay, so I keep hearing the sun. So we're going to go back to the sun again. And the transiting sun up in the sky was right there, going through his 9th house. So when your sun is, whatever house the sun is in for you, It's that area of your life that becomes important and that feeds you. Like it doing those activities give you energy. And again, it's the ninth house. So because it's the ninth house, there's this seeking energy going on. There's this, I want to, I need to be free. I want to go and seek. And this can be higher learning. So some people take this energy and they go back to school or they take some classes, whether it's weekend workshops or online stuff. So Venus is there too. You see that? And so Venus and Sag, we have to be careful when we have Venus and Sag because we know that Sag is Jupiter. So it adds to things. And we know Venus is all about desires and indulgences. And at 2212, that puts her right on his midheaven. That puts Venus on his midheaven. And that Mercury that we talked about in the other chart, look, that Mercury's at 25 here. I'm confused. Oh, because we were looking at December 3rd. That's why, duh. So it moved ahead because it's now December 4th. So Mercury moved ahead already. Yeah, it moves pretty quick. It moved a full degree within 24 hours. It was that darn Venus, her being at his midheaven. I know a lot of us were, especially because Venus entered Sag. Actually, Venus had a birthday. A rebirth of Venus happened in Sagittarius energy, folks. So it's your indulgences, and it's going to be connected to things that you might go overboard with, but things that you desire. So, what I desire isn't going to be the same as what you desire. And what does he desire? I can tell you that by looking at his, or we can read it. How's that? Reading it sounds so much better than I can tell you that. Yeah, his second house. That's the placement of desire energy. He's got Taurus there, right? And he's got Taurus and Taurus. And well, it can be sweets. It can be indulgences of any kinds. Think of the five senses. So smells, taste, touch. So this is food. This is earth. Sagittarius energy. And you can go look back on the video. I'm not saying this right now. But I am going to say this, but what I'm saying is I've said this 1,000 times before. I often tell people with Sagittarius energy, they like wine. They tend to like the spirits, right? They tend to like the liquid spirits. Okay. And so, a good friend of mine who was a Sag, I remember originally told me that. And at the time I was into astrology, but I wasn't as deep into it as I am now. And, since I've been doing it like this and just, doing it for other people, it's showed up that way. It has absolutely showed up that way. So it will lead back though to his desires. Anytime we see Venus on the outskirts like that, we still have to go back and say, well, we know Venus rules Taurus. So we can only look at his Taurus energy and it's in his second house. So, he could love food. He could love anything that's got to do with stimulating his five senses, right? And then sometimes when that's not enough, sometimes we push the envelope and we go a little further. And Venus and Sag might have been wanting to do that night. I have no idea. But since she was in that ninth house is talking to God. You can talk to your dead loved ones, but it's really a higher energy. It really wants to push the envelope. It's like that astronaut, it's like the test pilot, right? It really wants to just do that. It wants to go a little further than it wants to go off the planet in a way, right? And Venus having her rebirth in Sag, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was right at the beginning of December, actually. I would have to go back and watch my own videos because I'm just wondering in his chart what degree that was at that Venus had the rebirth. Does anybody remember? I feel like I should know these things. And right now, my brain's just not working that way. But either way, ninth house is Jupiter. So it really is like go big or go home. Okay. The other thing is look at the moon. We're going to go to the moon now. I'm going to try and do it in a way where it's a little less messy. But here's the moon. And that's important because our emotions have everything to do with, how we're feeling, right? And how we feel and how we talk, how we communicate. How we respond or react to something somebody else said or didn't say. That damn moon. And in Aries, the moon is very impatient because Aries energy is very impatient. And I'm going to keep the cursor right on that Aries because even though he has Taurus energy, I'm over here now. Um, well, hold on. Let's just get rid of that and pretend I didn't do that. Let me erase those if it'll let me, because yeah, um, he has Taurus energy in his second house, right? But what does he have? He has Taurus energy, but look, he has Aries on his second house cusp line, right? We kind of showed that in the other video and how it trines his midheaven and trines his sixth house, right? We talked about that a little quickly. I did anyway. That moon here is at 23. So that means that his moon is actually trining his midheaven. You see that? Trining it, and Venus, trining all that. That's all trining. Yeah. So this makes the desire factor. It was, I'm going to go after what I want, but I'm also finding it can be emotionally satisfying because that's the moon, right? Yeah. It can be emotionally satisfying. So the moon played a role. And the sun was in like, yeah, there was just a lot of fire energy. And so when I say fire, just keep in mind, fire moves very fast. It's very hot. It's about taking action. And when we think of Aries energy, holy smokes, Aries is the baby of the zodiac. It doesn't have patience. It is quick to act, slow to think, literally leaps without looking, and definitely reacts without having a conversation or asking. So that there explains, or I shouldn't say explains, but can help us to understand the influences or some of the influences that he was under that night. And when I say that, I first and foremost am talking about the influence of the planets. Okay. First and foremost, the influence of the planets, because those planetary influences, the byproduct is our actions and our choices. So the planetary influences come through first. Think about that. It's not first my desire, my action, and then the planetary influence comes. And that, no, it's that. And that affects how we feel, affects how we think. And then we go ahead and we make an action, or we speak, we say, or we do something. And it's kind of like a reaction to those influences. Okay. So many times I say we're under the impression, yeah, from the planetary bodies. That Venus training his second house cusp line. Wow. The moon right there too. So desire was a big factor that night. Now let me take a see if we can find what Mars. I don't know why. Okay, there it is. I'm like, where's Mars? All right, here we go. Let me change this color out, and so we could take a look at um everybody's favorite, Mars. Sarcasm, everybody's favorite, right? Mars energy. Now Mars is in Gemini here, okay? And it's still in Gemini as we speak, right? Mars is doing a retrograde in Gemini, and this was Mars retrograding, right, in red. So it's more intense then. And Mars was already out of bounds then. So it's more intense. Yeah, everything screams intensity with Mars. And the thing is that he had Mars in his third house. Okay. So third house and the sign of Gemini and the planet Mercury are all the same keywords: short distance travels. So literally, this person was likely in their neighborhood. It wasn't too far from their neighborhood. It wasn't far from home, or it was a place that was part of their local hangout, right? Somewhere this person was very familiar with this place, right? Wherever they're traveling. And that's just because it's in the third house and it's Mars, and it's automobile because it's Mars in Gemini. Mars takes action, and it's in Gemini, which is automobiles, and it's your neighborhood, and it's malefic Mars. Mars throws a monkey wrench into things. Yeah. So we always got to be, Mars is like Aries energy because Mars rules Aries energy. They're the same key words: impatient, reacts, right? Reacts instead of responds. It reacts. It doesn't think. It just does without thinking. So let's see what this Mars was angling. 17 degrees. So that would be 17. We're looking for 17 degrees in Pisces and 17° in Virgo. That would be a square energy, which would be stress and tension to his natal chart. So what I'm going to do is draw in where 17 would normally be because he doesn't have anything. Okay. So that would give us 17 degrees of Virgo there. And I know it's not going to look right, but uh, we'll say the 17 degrees of Pisces is over here somewhere. All right. So that Mars wasn't squaring, but what was it opposing? Because there's no squares. Was it opposing anything? 17 degrees in Sag. Ah, interesting. This IC, this chart draws the IC in there, and the IC would represent home. And you see, like at this time, it shows the IC was at 17. You can see the 17 degrees. I'm going to try to draw a straight line, so bear with me. Okay, it fixed it for me. Thank you. It just like looked like hell. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm going to look for his natal Mars, which I see right here, because Mars is always the one that does some shit. We're going to see if his natal Mars was angling one of the outer planets in a difficult way. And his natal Mars, I don't know if, let me see the screen. Oh, yeah, I have it blown up. Okay, let me move this real quick. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back. All right, so a square to his Leo, he has Mars in Leo. Oh, wow. When he roars, you can hear him. Holy shit. When he roars, that's the lion. Like you got to back up and everything. But he's going to be super physical with Mars and Leo. This is like physical performers, gymnasts. You know, they do those routines with music and shit and performance art, any performance art, like holy shit, he could do that. But he could also be very physical in general because there's no, like, they're very daring having Mars and Leo, very daring. God, he was probably a handful as a kid. Holy shit. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm just saying this would have been the daredevil child. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, he's into everything. Holy shit. He's on the roof. You know, like shit like that. That would be him. And we definitely see that in the natal chart because look at his moon, which is mom and family and home. His moon is at 7 degrees. And so his natal Mars squares his natal moon. And we don't see, well, we do see Hygeia. Hygeia is at 0 here. So I'm not even going to include that. Let's go to the opposite. Let's go to Taurus. Aha, we found it. We found it. It's Saturn, his natal Saturn. He has this square all the time, though, right? Which means he has a built-in T-square. Have you looked at his chart before, Alice? I'm just curious, because if you haven't, well, then you're getting an eyeful tonight. And it doesn't mean that you should have. I'm just curious if you already know all this. Because this is my first time seeing his chart, so I'm kind of going through it the way I would a first-time chart. I have to look at all the stuff. So he's got a T-square, a fixed T-square, which is difficult. But typically, what's triggered that fixed T-square? Did something trigger it? Are we going to blame it all on Venus, who couldn't control her desires? What are we looking at here? Now I'm going to go to the moon's nodes because here they are. Let me change my color for you. Moon's nodes are his nodes, right, are in Pisces and Virgo at 1 degrees. He's having a new moon. He's having a new moon on his south node, and it's Pisces. That's a big release. That's a very big release because Pisces is about completions and surrendering. And then the south node is about a release and a let go, right? And when you surrender, you kind of let go. But it's prayer. It's, it can be hospital energy. That's why I also think that's kind of interesting especially if he didn't get hurt, like that's awesome. But he's got his nodes. Now, where are the transiting nodes? Here's the transiting nodes. Ooh. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Here is the South Node. Here is his Chiron. This South Node already went over his Chiron. Yeah, because this is already at 13. So this Chiron, the wounds of my body, intense wounds, yep, intense, deep emotional wounds, likely carrying over from a long time ago, whether it's your soul's history. Um, yeah, there's some deep emotional stuff there, but this already passed over that. So that wasn't the factor of that night. Let's check Uranus. I keep hearing Uranus. So let's go find out where the heck his natal Uranus is. Uranus can be the automobile because it's an invention. Aquarius and Uranus energy are things that were invented that help the advancement of humanity. So the automobiles, but Uranus, we kind of connect it to flight and Gemini energy, more of like local transportation. But the automobile is definitely a thing that changed. Once we got away from horses, right? I mean, that's a huge deal. I'm trying to get us a different color on this thing. Here we go. Where's his natal Uranus? There it is. All right, we got his natal Uranus. Okay. Oh, it's an Aquarius. Oh my lord. Am I seeing that right? Okay, yeah, I guess that would be right. That was 1999. That seems so long ago in my brain. But yeah, Aquarius, Uranus in Aquarius. All right. Astrology. Holy crap. Advancements. This would be the tech industry and online.com, all that stuff. All of a sudden, we have emails all of a sudden. Some of us still didn't have email. Some of us still don't have email. Shit. All right. So where is the transiting Uranus at? I see it. And it's retrograding. Ah, ah, 1556 retrograding. And look on his Sedna, Sedna. Does he have pain or does he have pain? We all have pain. Sedna is about history. It's history from this lifetime or most recent. I'll put it like that. It's a feminine energy and it has a lot to do with Neptune and stormy waters, turbulent emotional waters. And it's values because it's in his second house. And this Uranus was triggering it. It's really close though. It's like for it to have been triggering it, this trigger started sooner. This wasn't just this night. Like there was probably something that he's been chewing on for a while. So this could be money and income and job because it's the second house. The second house is, do I have a job? Do I have savings? Am I stable? Can I, you know, can I stand on my own two feet? And having Uranus there on the Sedna typically, if I were to read the actual software's meaning, Sedna is like feminine energy that is angry over the fact that she's been wronged. She's been wronged, like by a father or a brother. Yeah, a male energy, masculine energy. I'll say it that way. A masculine energy, and that. Let me see if his natal squares. What does he have? Ooh, this is a soft spot for him. Holy crap. Okay, I'm gonna draw this out with this purple. So 15, 16 degrees Taurus squares 15, 16, 17 degrees of Leo. Now this is a square. These square all the time for him. He has his natal Mercury there and his natal Venus together. So a love for traveling. Oh, snap. Okay, this explains a lot now. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. He has Venus in Leo. Leo is how I take a risk. It's Venus. I love taking a risk. Venus. That's what I desire. Venus. Yeah. It's in the 5th house. So taking a risk is fun. You got it? It's in Leo too. He has really a lot of creative energy. And when we have that sort of power, it's really important to find a healthy creative outlet. Singing, performing physically, then if he's not into stuff like that, whatever performing kind of person he is, he could do art, get some damn paint, get some, or carpentry, whatever, any old thing, whatever it is, whatever medium he likes, as long as there's making something. And food could be a big deal because it's Venus. Anything with smells, sensories, textiles, clothing, even. So that could be like fashion and yeah, like Venus is there, flashy, making costumes, even Venus, Leo, costumes, absolutely. And Mercury's right there. And these two are always squared by Sedna. Okay. And this Uranus was touching Sedna. You see that? This Uranus was touching Sedna. But again, Ellis, Uranus doesn't move fast. So this has been kind of, yeah, the stress and the tension have been there. Yeah. The stress and the tension have been there. So why on this night? Well, so far Venus has been a factor. The desire factor has been pretty strong on this night. We know from this Venus, natal Venus in Leo, the thrill of taking a risk, the thrill of like an adrenaline junkie almost. I mean, I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying it gives kind of that vibration. Okay. And then of course this fire energy, right? All this stuff he has in fire, like they are trining. This Venus was trining his own Venus, his own Mercury. And this is one of those times where sometimes the trines end up hurting us because it's a desire factor. It always comes down to, when we're talking about our desires, it always ends up being we have to be able to be mature enough to control our desires, right? As opposed to letting our desires and our emotions control us. And I know that's a really difficult thing to do. It's easy to talk about it when we're older. We're like, "Oh yeah." And the truth is we lose steam. Like, let's be honest, right? We lose steam, but when we're young, yeah, when we're young and fiery, this dude's fiery. Okay. And so when we're young and fiery, we feel invincible, you know? And that's what I mean by sometimes the trines can be a setup. We feel invincible, And so it can be hard. It can be hard because then we end up doing things that probably wouldn't do had we stopped and thought about it and just took a few breaths or listened to something somebody said. I also want to point out that this Venus here see Nessa right here? Let me move this blue thing out of the way. I don't even know what that was looking at. See this Nessa right here at 19 degrees? Venus is already past Nessa. She's really like more on the midheaven, right? But for him, all the time in his chart, his natal Venus and Mercury are always sending trine energy, which means it's easy. It's always sending trine energy to this Nessa. Now, this Nessa energy, she can be a shit starter. This Nessa energy is feminine energy. Well, it's feminine and masculine, I'll put it like that. And it's kind of got like this revenge vibration to it. It's the myth is it talks about Hercules, and there's a centaur who's very upset with Hercules because Hercules was being very boastful. And while Hercules was being boastful, he kind of forgot about his responsibilities. And at the time, because Hercules is like, just Mr. Muscle Man, right? Muscles beyond muscles. And he's got like magic almost, right? So the myth is that Hercules was holding onto like a herd of wild horses. If you can imagine that, like a herd of wild horses. Somehow he reined them all in and he's holding on to them literally, like with one arm. And he had this great accomplishment because he caught all these wild horses that were like running through the village and trampling shit and were just crazy wild. And the villagers were scared and all this other stuff. And so he got him. He held on to them, right? And so he gets back to the village and he's telling everybody, he's saying, "Oh my gosh, look what I did. I did this, I did that. Look what I did." And so he's kind of partying at this point. He's like, "Where's the wine?" Right? And so while he's doing that, he takes the rope or whatever it is that he's got corralled around the horses and he hands it to somebody who doesn't have the strength that he has. And he's like, "Here, hold this for a minute." So while his buddy, who was also Hercules' friend, right? His friend's holding this rope, right? The wild horses end up trampling his friend and he dies. Well, Nessa is also one of the friends of the person that died. And so ever since that happened, Nessa is like seeking revenge on Hercules because Nessa blames Hercules for their friend's death. And I can't remember the friend's name. I can't even remember. I can't even believe I can remember that story. But and so it's got kind of that I'm going to get you back type of energy, right? So anyway, he's got like a trine, like his Venus and his Mercury are always trining that kind of stuff. So in my eyes, again, that's another trine that can make things difficult, right? Because something he thinks might be funny, Leo energy, comedy, jokes, cracking jokes, or doing something that's for fun, even. I don't know why my little arrows aren't working, but because I can't draw, that's why. There we go. But Leo's about making jokes and having a good time. Yeah. So if it trines that Nessa, he could use those jokes to maybe, you know, it's funny to him, but it might be hurtful to somebody else. Now, this isn't saying that like there was somebody trying to get after him that night. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is, well, I'm just explaining his birth chart and how his Venus trines that Nessa. And so this Venus has to be careful because, yeah, this Venus might not see, uh, yeah, this Venus absolutely might not see um, that it can be hurtful. And again, we're coming back to Venus again. This same Venus. Remember, I started off his chart talking about he just had a birth of Venus in his ninth house. And this ninth house, I kept talking about long distance travel and freedom. It's beliefs. This ninth house is religion and spirituality, but also what he believes in, his philosophy on life. And so with Venus going through there, Venus is all about her belief, right? She may feel like, yeah, overindulging or just saying, "Hey, I really want some freedom," or yeah, Sag is all about doing what you can to feel free. And if Venus is there, we can be quite um we can possibly just, yeah, go a little bit off the deep end, maybe have an extra drink, or maybe, I mean, I don't know. And again, I don't want to say that because I don't know. But the inclination could very easily have been there. And absolutely the Sedna down here with that Uranus is also freedom. But Uranus is freedom in a way, not seeking knowledge and wisdom. That's not how this Uranus rolls. This Uranus is literally to do something new, to do something I haven't done before, to go somewhere I haven't gone before, because it needs to just break out and be free. It's a very independent spirit, a lot like the Aryan moon. Uranus and Aries have that in common. Uranus is also my friends. So friends may have been an influence that night as well. I have to bring that into this. Friends may have been somewhat of an influence because Uranus rules Aquarius. And he had his Uranus in Aquarius, and that would definitely be friends. And Saturn, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to find a orange and pray that it shows up. You see the transiting Saturn is right here. Saturn is restrictions and rules. Restrictions and rules with group energy. Could be friends because it's Aquarius, right? This Saturn at 20 squares his second house cusp line at 20. So it's 2 degrees away. He most definitely was feeling it. It's actually just under 2 degrees away because this is 2002. This Taurus energy at 22 is in his third house. I'm going to draw a line so you can see that. You might not be able to see it. You might not be able to see any of this. I just realized because the software shows up really light when I do recordings, and I always have to darken it before I put it up on the video on the channel. So that's Saturn squaring the way he thinks. It's restrictive thinking, but it's also still going to be because it's Saturn in Aquarius. So there's a bit of this, we're going to have a new tradition, right? Saturn is rules and regulations. It wants to set up structures and boundaries. The idea with structures and boundaries, right? It's, think of a parent. Absolutely. The authority figure in someone's life is Saturn. So is the sun. The sun is also an authority figure in somebody's life, someone who can tell you what to do. And that Saturn beaming over, sending square restrictive energy to his second house cusp line, the way he thinks and talks and communicates, the way he relates. And so having Taurus there, in fairness to him, and this will help explain a little bit more, if Venus was a factor, actually, I don't doubt that Venus was a factor because Venus rules Taurus. He's got Taurus on his third house. So when we talk about desires and possibly indulging or at least having a good time, because his Venus likes to take risks, we found out, but this Venus rules this Taurus, that's definitely connected. We have to connect those dots. Now, this isn't for you to, this is not to create division in your family. And I'm not saying that, that this will do that. I know you want this just so that you can have understanding. But when we're born with influences like he's got some really strong angling stuff that I've pointed out that's squared all the time. And part of that is remember his natal Saturn? His natal Saturn right here is always opposing his moon, and his black moon Lilith is right involved in that too. So this was from his birth, okay? That's from his birth. So there's this kind of energy takes maturing, takes a bit of living to understand, okay, I've done this before. I have to take a breath. I have to step back. I have to maybe talk to a few other people, ask for their opinions because his thoughts, going back to Taurus, because his thoughts and his mind, the way it works, and I say this in the most respectful way because I am Taurus, Taurus can be really slow in the head sometimes. You follow? So, like I said, I'm saying this I'm actually a double Taurus. So I'm saying this in a very respectful way. But I know I can see one of my Taurus energy and it it somebody a subscriber said it best. She said, "My Taurus energy," she said, "it takes me a long time to understand a concept or what you're telling me. Like, I just don't get it the first time I hear it." She's like, "But after I've heard it multiple times and the repetition," she said, "I finally get it. And then once I get it, I got it. Like it's locked in." And that's the same thing here, especially because it's on his third house. Because remember, Taurus is slow, it's cautious, it's the bull that stands in the pasture and it barely moves. The only time it moves is because it's either going to eat, right? And so it chooses and it wants to be more comfortable. So it wants to go get food or it wants to go lay down. But if it's comfortable in its spot, you don't mess with it. You leave the bull alone. But if you mess with it, it can anger the bull and then the bull charges. The bull doesn't trot, right? The bull doesn't trot. The bull doesn't go jogging. The bull is not known to make sudden movements. It's very cautious. But if it gets angry, it goes after it like it's the red bullseye. It just sees red and it goes. So that's not to say that he just saw red and got angry that night and went, but it's just to say that to his defense, Saturn is squaring his third house cusp line. His thinking is a little off right now, and it's going to be. Now, the good news is this is already done and over with. This happened in December, and that Saturn is not going to be back to do for a long, long time before it gets back to where it is, right? It's going to be a long time before the transiting Saturn in the sky gets back. It'll take for Saturn to get to his Leo energy, which won't be easy because he has a T square with this all the time too. It'll be over here by his Leo energy and his sixth house cusp line. That's at 24 degrees. But once Saturn gets over here, like at 20, just 4 degrees ahead of it, right? It'll be squaring his third house cusp line again. Okay. But natally, he always has this this T square going on with his 11th house and his 6th house. And I'm going to draw this with a darker color so you can see his natal T square that he has all the time. And that, again, doesn't make excuses for somebody. It's just third house cusp line, and he has Taurus, remember? And third house cusp line is short distances. It's traveling. It is the automobile. And yeah, he just might be somebody who's going to have high auto insurance until he learns how to handle the Taurus energy. See that big T square? That's his third house cusp line. That's his 6th house cusp line, which is daily routines. It is his health as well. It is his job, but he has Leo on his 6th house cusp line. Leo it likes to take risks, remember. And it sees it like that it can be fun, right? So we just need to get this guy into some creativity, something healthy and creative. I don't know if he's into music. I mean, he's got Pisces in the 12th house. He's got his South Node in Pisces. He should innately be crazy creative with Pisces over there. With a South Node, his superpower in Pisces energy. He should be really creative. So what do you think, Alice? Let me go minimize on this for a little bit. What do you think, Alice? You probably have a lot of questions. Let me check. Let's see what we got here in the chat. It was a short trip from the bar. We got that. It happened early on the morning. Yes.